Hi, everybody. Hello. I'm obviously Siobhan Sarna. Hello. Not my finer moment, but nevertheless, we're here live. This is my friend and colleague and in many ways a mentor, Steve Wright. He and I have been friends for many, many years. Most importantly, about how this impacts you is that Steve is a health engineer. And he has been trained as truly, like, really legitimately an engineer, but he is one of the smartest biohackers, health hackers, whatever you want to call it, that I know. And whenever I have an obscure question to ask about a medical scenario or an out of the box thought or something I've read or a study or something, I so frequently turn to Steve and I'm like, what do you think about this? And he always is like, oh yeah, I just read about that. That's awesome. Or whatever you do not even go down that rabbit hole, Siobhan. Back off, back away. So back away, abort. Yeah, like, don't go there. Steve is a gut expert. He truly is. He and his previous business partner, Steve Jordan, created the SCD Lifestyles blog and website, and they're really some of the very first people to educate the masses online about leaky gut. So truly an expert there. He's friends with Dr. Allison Seebecker. He's mentored both of us in terms of how to get the messages out to the world. And it's a pleasure to have him here. He's become a product formulator. He's always had a dream. I'm talking about, like, you're not here, Steve. He's always had this dream of formulating products, and just the stars didn't align, but they finally did. And he did his research. He has gone the distance of what you would want any product formulator to do to really find the best and be like, no, that's what everyone else is doing. I don't want to do that. Oh yeah, that, I love that. That definitely has to be in there, and does all the testing and everything you'd want in terms of due diligence. So with that being said, Steve had a great idea, and he wanted to do a talk on how to make your body more SIBO proof and to reduce the possibilities of relapse. And a lot of us know, if you've been following the work at SIBO SOS for a while and you've taken a SIBO recovery roadmap or whatever, all these great courses that we have, that prokinetics is one way to help with preventing relapse. It's a big, big point that Dr. Allison Seebecker makes all the time. Steve had some other ideas that I thought were really helpful and useful, and that's why he's here today. Hello, sir. Long-winded introduction, but I wanted to make sure everyone understood the why, about why you're so important to us.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. It's always great to spend any time I can with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. So Steve, I'm going to do this because I'm a smart person now, and fill my screen because I'm a TV person. I'm supposed to know how to do this. What are some of the things that you want us to know about how we can sort of SIBO proof our bodies?
Yeah, this kind of came from just interacting in the SIBO SOS Facebook group, and just kind of monitoring what was happening in the group, and also my own journey with gut health. It's like when you make a step in the right direction, like, you really don't want to give that up. You don't want to give up your wins, and when you overcome something like a gut infection or some sort of like detox issue, like, you don't want to get that again. Like, you're not like trying to like get mercury toxicity again. Like, you're like, I did that, I'm good. Prefer to never go through that again.
Right.
And I think with SIBO, man, I think we have a lot to do when it comes to making people more SIBO resistant or SIBO proof, like you said, or just like, man, how can we do this once and like really set up a lifestyle that can allow us to go back to what we wanted to be doing, which is probably a lot less worry and a lot less focus on what would happen if we were to get this again. So, and I think actually all the stuff we're going to talk about is going to apply if you are currently in a SIBO treatment as well.
Oh, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And this is where you maybe squirrel this away for another phase in your SIBO recovery roadmap algorithm, or you're going to dive in right now. Okay, get us started, Steve. What's one? These are not in order of importance, right? They're all important.
No, yeah. Where do you want to start? Pick one.
Meal spacing.
Meal spacing. Okay. Well, I don't know if anybody else is like me, but I'm an emotional eater, and I'm okay saying that now. And I've struggled with that in the past. And I work a job in which I can be in some stress, and I can soothe I can end up soothing through emotional eating. I also come from a background of performance and athletics. And when I was growing up, you were like educated that you should like drink your protein shake after you work out. And then like 2 hours later, make sure you eat again because that makes your muscles better and you look sexier and all these things. And then it became like, well, if you eat every 2 hours, then you balance your blood sugar. And this became this giant important myth that is like true for like a very, very small percentage of people, but very small percentage. In fact, you should get a glucose monitor if you actually think that's an issue, and you might find out that it's a lot of it's psychological. And so that's
hold
something, whole other thing.
Just hold the frick on, okay? Like I've seen those on TV, and our friend Rita Marie has one, and Summer Bach, I've seen them in person with it. I'm like, does it hurt? That's my main.
I don't know. Not for me, it doesn't.
Well, you're a badass. I don't like needles, so like I'm just like horrified by that idea. But
I find the finger pricking of anything for ketones or glucose to be much more painful than just this once every 14 days.
And when you roll over to sleep, does it hurt?
Nope. The only thing I found is that in the beginning, like in the shower, I would like be washing and I would catch it. So I did that a few times. That didn't feel.
Yeah. But, okay. Thank you for the side note. Go ahead.
So anyways, I wanted to bust some myths just to say that, like, in general, I understand why you might snack and also why you might believe you need to snack. But gut health research, Dr. Siebecker, like, I think everybody who's a SIBO expert on your summits and your talks has said, stop snacking. And so I don't want to be the guy who's like, hey, like there's a giant, I don't know, like spider in the room, but there is this elephant or spider where if we're eating all the time, the migrating motor complex, peristalsis, everything's all confused. Your hormone cycles, your cortisol cycles, ghrelin, all this sort of orchestra of things that come together to cleanse the intestines gets really confused. And I think it sets up the conditions, it sets up the ecological conditions for SIBO, candida, some sort of just odd microbiome experience. And so if you're capable of doing a eating window diet, like some people are really into this, like 16-8 or some version of that. Great.
Explain what that is. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so that's where you choose a period of time where you don't eat. So like maybe from 8 p.m. until noon the next day, you only do liquids, no calories in those liquids. Some people do like 8 p.m. to 10 a.m. Like there's no, some people will swear there's an ideal way to do it. The point is just make sure there's a long enough break that your body can cycle through not having calories and cycle through the migrating motor complex. So if you're someone like me who struggles with snacking, who works at home now and just has access to too much food because we are abundantly in the Western world, very grateful for all those things, you might try an eating window. That way, when you are snacking, it's like compressed down to 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day. So
before you go on, in case we have some new people here, hello. Could you explain, or if you want me to, I will, the migrating motor complex, also known as the MMC, when you're reading the books and the blogs and the literature and you're in the Facebook group, just if you want to explain that.
I can, but I think they should buy your book and they can read all about it. What's your book say? What's your book say about the migrating motor complex? Tell them real quick.
Okay, well, the migrating motor complex is the sweeping wave of the small intestine. Dr. Pimentel refers to as the sort of crumb cleaner. Imagine yourself at a white tablecloth restaurant and the garçon, the waiter comes around and they have these little like tubes and they sweep the crumbs off the table so it's all pristine. So the migrating motor complex is that action in the small intestine, getting rid of the debris of old food particles and including the bacteria, which remember, SIBO is small intestine bacterial overgrowth, so it sweeps it out so that the bacteria is not present to be able to overgrow. And one of the reasons we get SIBO is because our migrating motor complex is either malfunctioning from food poisoning, antibodies, or you have adhesions. And so literally your tissue can be pulled out of the way. And even if you have a good migrating motor complex, it doesn't function fully effectively because maybe your tissue is misplaced, so to speak, within your body. How's that?
That's
And okay, thank you. And wait for it. Steve already touched on this, but the migrating motor complex is inhibited when you consume calories. So that's where this meal spacing comes into play. And I have a theory, Steve, and that is that maybe one of the reasons why so many people benefit from intermittent fasting, there are lots of reasons why, there's tons, but one of the side benefits is that they're giving their migrating motor complex a break so that it can actually work. They're giving themselves a caloric rest so that the migrating motor complex can work. Anyway, thank you. There you go.
No, that's great. And yeah, like, look, I think the point of this talk is that we work so hard sometimes to find the most perfect biofilm disruptor and the most perfect triple 97 version herbal treatment for these types of conditions. But if we're doing these habitual daily practices that allow it to come back or to thrive even during a herbal treatment, you're really setting yourself up for failure. So I'm hoping that today we're just going to give out some like super crazy practical tips that people can integrate right away, no matter where they're at. So, which I think actually brings us to the next one, which is the nervous system. You want to go there?
Yeah, let's do it.
Because another great way to totally just totally jack up your migrating motor complex and make sure it never works is stress and anxiety. And the world we're in right now, the conditions are awareness through news and social media of like how much angst is out there and possibility for our, who knows, mutual destruction of whatever you want to talk about. I think we, like you were talking about, we are living in a massive experiment in human history around how much information can a human deal with and still stay regulated in their nervous system. Because as most people are aware, we have the parasympathetic side and we have the sympathetic side. Sympathetic is gas, parasympathetic is brake, rest and digest, fight or flight. And we want a nervous system that's able to, when we want and throughout the day, is rotating back and forth, back and forth. We don't want to just stay redline for 5 hours while we're at work and then try to figure out where the break is after work, let alone if that's like 6 or 8 or 12 hours. And so I have a theory that, and it actually comes also from monitoring my blood glucose. I had no idea that when my anxiety is up, my blood glucose is running 15 to 20 points higher. Like I almost like am functioning like a diabetic when that's happening. Otherwise, my fasting blood glucose is like, pretty solid, like an 85. But I've had mornings where I'm waking up and it's like 105, 110. And I'm like, what is going on? And I'm under some stress. And when I don't do my practices to keep my my parasympathetic tone of my nervous system, if I don't actively try to switch back and forth, because I have to actively try, it really wrecks my digestion and it wrecks my blood glucose. And we can go, into the scientific studies on that, but there are studies showing that it stops your migrating motor complex as well.
So there's just this thing in the Facebook group. Maybe you read it. There was a post there was a post this morning by a mental health professional, and she was talking about how mental health and stress impact the gut. And Dr. Pimentel has said that I'm going to paraphrase, but that like returning veterans from the Middle East who have SIBO, he doesn't see a correlation between stress and SIBO, basically. I'm like way oversimplify it. But this mental health professional and common sense and everything you just said, I think what we can really say with confidence is that it is a contributing factor. It is, I personally don't know and really don't care whether or not it's the cause of my SIBO back in the day. But it's something that is contributing. And look, let's face it, the more we're in parasympathetic state, like you were saying, not like so that we're like mellow all the time, but having that dynamic balance is the key. So don't anyone get triggered by being like, see, I told you stress is the reason why we all have SIBO. It's just not that black and white, and it's a contributing factor, just like mold. Is that the reason why I have SIBO or had SIBO worse than I do now? I don't know, but it's not helping me. That's for darn sure. So, okay, thank you. I just wanted to sort of calm that down.
Yeah. And like, don't stress about your stress.
Yeah.
I mean, which is a Zen koan in its own right. But the point is that we do know that gastrin production, which is the trigger for stomach acid, is shut off in sympathetic. So it's, regardless of what the brilliant Dr. Pimentel says, I think there's enough studies out there that suggest that being stressed is bad for small intestine
Absolutely.
function.
Large intestine, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I want to give, so I was told by Chris Kresser, like I used to work with Chris, he was a mentor of mine, and I was told by him many moons ago that I had a stress problem. And that used to piss me off. Oh man, that used to piss me off. Because like no one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear that.
No one does.
And it's taken me a long road to get to where I am now. And I wanted to share a few tips that I think are really easy for a somebody who's like stress, they're upset about their stress right now or something, like just really practical tips. So first thing is we talk about vagal tone. We're also kind of talking about vagal tone right now with parasympathetic tone. So you hear like humming and gargling and singing are ways to tone your parasympathetic and your vagal tone. Well, I don't prefer any of those, quite honestly. I feel weird. It's just not something I'm into, and I forget. So, but what I do know is that I can feel like a state shift in my whole body if I breathe in and breathe out with like a sound, like 5 times in a row, just like blah or yeah, whatever, just whatever the emotion but I gotta like go for it. I gotta actually like breathe out. And so if you're working from home, this works. If you're at an office, maybe you got to go to the bathroom. I don't know. But if you do that like once an hour, or even when you remember a few times a day, like you will shift your parasympathetic tone and you can feel it in your body, just kind of relax. And if you do have the desire, if you're like, I'm going to get over this SIBO, no matter what, this is my time, 2021, I would really encourage doing a practice of Wim Hof breathing. This is another sort of Western meets Eastern tradition that has scientific literature behind it, as well as I just noticed a profound state shift in parasympathetic tone if I do it. And you can just Google Wim Hof guided breathing on YouTube. It's like 11 minutes. Just sit there, lie down, and follow along, and you will have a state shift. And I think based on Eastern and Western studies where he basically fought off lipopolysaccharides like coming into his blood, so like they injected him with it. Like it's some really cool stuff.
Oh, I got to check that out. So you guys, LPS, lipopolysaccharides, you hear Kieran Krishna talking about that all the time, and that's what makes us feel not well often with SIBO. So that's really cool, Steve. That's amazing. I didn't know that.
So Wim Hof, they injected him with LPS in the arm. He did his breathing techniques, and he was able to basically overcome this E. coli injection and reduce all of like the markers of like inflammation as well as his perceived pain. Like this is a very painful event when you do this to someone. Then he took 6 people, because right, like maybe he's just an Olympian, right? Like maybe he's the Olympian of breathing and LPS.
Yeah.
Who knows? But then he took 6 untrained people and put them through his training for 2 days, and then they injected them and repeated the study. And so, we're still way out on the curve here, like what's happening. But if you do the 3 rounds of breathing, you will feel tingling, you'll feel a difference. You're changing your CO2 levels, which are also related to your sympathetic and your anxiety. And so I just, as far as like an Eastern meets Western experience, I think it's one of the best.
Very cool. So Candace is saying she can't do Wim Hof. Well, I'm sure I'm not sure why, but it'd be interesting to see if there's even a variation, or, and if you all don't know what we're talking about, it's do you want to do it, Steve, and just do us a quick little demo, or go to the YouTube?
Just go to the YouTube, but I mean, you're just breathing in and out. Like if you go to the YouTube where it has in, out, it like literally tells you just. So like that's all you do for 30 to 40 breaths.
How do you spell Wim Hof?
WIM and then space HOF.
So Steve just nailed it. Like it's the East and the West together. As a yoga teacher, this is classic yoga breathing, and I don't care what you call it. Awesome. It's a beautiful, beautiful technique. And if you've never done anything with breath work before, you're just like, oh, I'm having a great day. That's fine too, but there's just ancient science behind all of this. So definitely worth checking out. And it's free. Come on.
Yeah, it's totally free. Yeah. It just requires effort.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's that. Okay. So what else you got, Steve? That sounds great. That's a great suggestion.
Okay, well, that was two. What was our other one here?
I'm looking up I'm looking up your email.
I mean, I know we got stomach acid. I know we're going to talk about that.
Let's talk about that next. Yeah, because that's really important.
So I have gotten, and this is not my idea, this is a naturopathic tradition, which is to focus on the terrain more than the invader of the terrain. It's like, if you have an invasive species, you can go and try to like kill every single one of them. But normally they evade your detection. And instead you can focus on creating a more inhospitable terrain for that invasive species. And so if you think about your gut as a ecological system of biofilms and microbiomes and, yeasts and viruses and all this weird stuff that we are just barely learning about, our skin as a biome, everything is a biome. We want to create the conditions to have the healthiest terrain, basically the healthiest ecosystem. And so what we know is that stomach acid is a major contributor to killing incoming bugs. It's a major contributor to breaking down your food such that you can absorb it. It is a major contributor to the peristaltic waves and essentially moving the food through your body at the appropriate time, because you don't want to go too fast, and you don't want to go too slow. And then, it seems related to the migrating motor complex again as well. But I think there's a significant number of SIBO experts that would suggest that inhibited stomach acid is going to cause the conditions to be more right for continued SIBO. And so I'm a huge fan of everybody really, really investigating. Give it one shot, whether it's HCl Guard or whether it's someone else's product, but please try to do a betaine HCl challenge. It really can be the difference.
Okay, so what is that challenge?
So that challenge, and you can Google it, most of the instructions follow the same sort of basic philosophy, which is you get a product that has betaine HCl, which is an acid that is in your stomach, with pepsin, which is the number one proteolytic enzyme in your stomach. And you take one of these pills. Hopefully it's at least 500 milligrams. There's some very underdosed products on the market, but 500 milligrams or more. And you take one with a standard meal that you would eat. You should take it, potentially like right as you take your first bite with a little bit of food, or right at the end. Yep, that's the HCl Guard.
Yep.
So that's a stomach acid HCl support with a prokinetic. So with that one, the difference between our product and everybody else's product is that we have organic ginger and DGL and intrinsic factor, which are all kind of parts of it.
Can you go over what? I can't see that. Can you?
Yeah, the camera's not focusing on it.
What is DGL again?
Deglycerinated licorice root.
And then organic ginger and betaine hydrochloride and pepsin and what's intrinsic factor again? Isn't that having to do with B vitamins?
Yeah, B12. So it's basically like basically what I like to call it like the bouncer for B12. If your B12 is not enveloped with intrinsic factor, the stomach, the small intestine doesn't absorb it. And so um, we know that B vitamins can often be malabsorbed in all kinds of gut issues. And so intrinsic factor is normally released in the stomach. And I just find it really odd that we've known this biochemistry for like 40 years and no one's built a product that includes all three. Like, we have them. Why didn't we do it? So
Right.
that really bugged me. And so that's why I built the product like that.
That's what I was talking about. Hey, Clarissa, could you put the link for HCl Guard in the chat, please, for everybody? Because Steve has given the SIBO SOS community a phenomenal, phenomenal deal on it. And so you can go to SIBOSOS.com to the shop and find it there. But it's also a link we can put in the chat. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll put it in the comments section. Okay, so
you do so just to wrap that up, you do the HCl challenge. You either do it with our HCl Guard or someone else's product. Make sure it's at least 500 milligrams and it contains pepsin.
Okay.
Our product, you typically need to use less capsules than other companies, is what I found. So you might not experience anything. That's great. Try 2 pills the next day, 3 pills the next day. You will reach a point where you don't feel good. You'll feel like your digestion moves too fast. You'll feel a little hotness, a little heat. And so that means your ideal dosage for your current terrain, for your body, for its issues right now is like, say, 3 pills per meal. And so that's where you'll stay, usually for like 6 months, maybe 10 months. At some point, most people begin to need less and less, and then you go off of it. And so that's the beauty of it. And I think Dr. SSL, which is, he's done lots of your shows with you.
Even Lewis, yep.
Yeah, so he's a awesome guy, mentor as well. And I think he said about 75% of his IBS patients, when he tested them, experienced low stomach acid when he actually tested them. So it's not everybody who has SIBO, but it could be 75%.
Very interesting. I definitely know that my dysregulation of stomach acid was not good for a very long, I was on Prilosec for 7 years. So, that's a very long time to be on that drug. And then I did something very similar to what Steve is talking about. This is before he had his product, and it changed my life. There's just no doubt. It's totally transformed my life. I had to try it 3 times, but on the 3rd time, it was the charm, and I was able to stop immediately. So getting those HCl values right is super, super important. Okay, so remember, go to
just for the record, we have a health coach on staff who can walk you through that process because it can be confusing. And I'm committed to people getting their stomach acid right, even if we have to hire a whole army of health coaches for free. So to help y'all, because it's that important. The same thing happened for me as it did with Siobhan. I was very concerned. It was weird. Then I did it, and then holy cow.
Right. And I was like doing the overnights at the time. So my stomach acid was already super weirded out. I had done them for 6 years without coffee. I then finally, out of desperation, did coffee, which will totally mess you up. And it really did work. Okay, so Diana's asking, I have sleep apnea. Does that mess up CO2 levels? I think you're talking about the Wim Hof breathing. I don't know. I would just Google that. And there's probably Wim Hof coaches around the world who'd probably be thrilled to answer that. And I'm sure there's a Wim Hof Facebook group. So speaking of Facebook groups, Steve, what is your Facebook group? And by the way, very rarely do I suggest other people's Facebook groups because I don't know how they're run, and I'm super protective of our community. But Steve's, I know, will be wonderful. So that's just for people who have the product.
Yeah. For our customers, we are committed to giving as much individualized attention as we can to every single person. And so I have a health coach, Kim. She's amazing. And then I am in there every other day or so to try to help people as well. So yeah, any customers, that's a customers group. We're all about sort of action and talking about other people's products.
So how do we get invited to it? If we buy, you send an email inviting people?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You get multiple emails.
Okay. All right. So can't be understated. Okay, so then let's
What
talk
is the
about both enzymes at the same time, because
okay?
those are sort of, twins. They're not twins, but they're companions. So this is Holozyme, which is the other one of the other supplements that Steve has put together, and his story about it is very intense about how he's tried so many and what he wanted in it and the like. I don't have a bottle of that because it's downstairs in the kitchen because I take it when I eat. So tell us about Holozyme, and also you can find the special price on SIBO-SOS.com in the shop. And Clarissa, thank you for being here. If you would put that link in the chat, please. Okay.
Yeah, so we got coupons for both, free US shipping for both. International is still, still have to pay for that. But yeah, so again, terrain. If it's all about setting up the conditions for success, setting up the conditions for you to not have overgrowth of any kind in your digestive tract. And so we know that inflammation and potentially SIBO, definitely celiac disease, and some parasites tend to attack the villi in the small intestine. Now, these villi are part of what excrete the brush border enzymes. And these are the considered, there's a lot of specialty ones, but the majority of them have to do with the final steps of carbohydrate digestion. And so turning, for instance, starch into glucose so you can actually absorb it. And it's no wonder that all the IBS diets out there, whether you're talking specific carbohydrate diet, the GAPS diet, the FODMAPs diet, the SIBO diet, majority of them don't pay much attention to protein and fat. But they're very into carbohydrate structures and polysaccharide structures and what is okay and what's not okay. And I believe the majority of the reason why, again, if we're going to blame a macro cycle here, it's because your enzymes are not working properly once the intestinal tract is inflamed, and these villi are unable to make the enzymes you need to actually break down your food. And that's, not even talking about the pancreatic enzymes that start at the beginning of the upper small intestine. If those don't go off right, if you don't get your amylase to break your carbohydrates down and from their bigger structures down to the smaller structures, you're definitely going to have malabsorption. And then again, we're setting up the conditions for overgrowth. Like if you throw extra carbohydrate out there or a disaccharides, too many disaccharides, you're just asking for SIBO, you're asking for SIFO, you're asking for anything like that. It's just like if you were to, instead of putting your garbage in the garbage can, just throw it out in the yard every day. See what happens. See what creatures show up. There'll be a few, I guarantee it. And so I am a huge proponent around using enzymes when you're in any kind of digestive situation, because odds are your stomach acid's messed up, therefore your pancreatic enzymes are not getting activated, or your brush border is damaged and you're not going to be able to do carbohydrates. And then we end up, seeing these elimination diets that feel really good, but then you try to reintroduce your foods and they suck. You can't get them in. It hurts. There's bloating. And I'm going to blame the majority of that on enzyme function.
It is, from my observation, the easiest, along with meal spacing, but the most overlooked non-prescription thing you can do. I would say that and meal spacing. You put those two together and watch out. I think you could really impact your experience with food. That's just, my observation, my experience. So Steve, when is the best time to consume these enzymes? Before a meal, during a meal, in between meals? Because I think, they act differently depending on whether there's food in the stomach.
Yeah, so if there's food in your digestive tract, they will act on that food. Normally, if you're someone who's struggling with these conditions and you want to be like, I want the least amount of food for the bacteria and I want the most amount of food for my body, you should take them at the beginning of your meal. If you forget, like I often do, taking them right at the end of your meal usually works pretty well, unless you are in one of those states where you're pretty banged up. And this, it can be we've had people in the Facebook group who are like, I'm not getting the results. And I'm like, okay, how are you taking the products? And they're like, well, I'm just taking them at the end of the meal, like you said. And I'm like, well, hey, I've been doing this for like 15 years. Try the beginning of the meal. And they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. So it does matter for some people. And so, yeah, so do that. Make sure you get a digestive enzyme. If you don't use Holozyme, which I believe is obviously the best in the world because I made it and I tried everything I could to not make it. Actually, I didn't want to have to do this.
Really did. You really didn't.
It's so expensive and it's so annoying. Enzymes are so particular.
Making
they're
a
very particular.
It is just like having your own stuff, and he's not private labeling that. So let's clarify that. So private labeling is when you say to a manufacturer, oh, I like this formula that probably already exists. I'm going to slap a SIBO SOS label on it or a Steve Wright label on it. That's a very, very different than formulating it from the ground up yourself, which is what you've done, Steve.
Yeah, I did leverage a PhD who had a patent on these enzymes and some studies. He had 6 human studies, which again is like extra rare for any digestive enzyme. Find me a digestive enzyme with studies on it. I don't know of any. There's just they are with systemic enzymes, but not digestive. And so so ours are activated. They have a PhD patent around activation. I took his activation blend and I tuned it for digestion. And so it works really well systemically, which is when you take it in between meals without food for inflammation or blood flow or biofilm disruption or whatever you might do there, cleaning up your blood of like extra proteins if you've had leaky gut, things like that, which is what really sold me on the product. And I sort of tweaked that to be much more about the carbohydrate issues and just the issues that we face in the digestive world.
Very cool. So do you have any tips? Like you said, like sometimes you forget to take them at the beginning of the meal. Do you have any tips on how to increase compliance? I put mine right where my true salt is, or real salt, or whatever that is. So it's literally like a condiment on the table. So like whatever I'm doing, popping them in right there. If I have to get up to go get them and I'm hungry, like that ship sails. I'm like, yeah. Then I'm like, all right, I'll get them in a second, and then it's dessert, and I'm done, and I gotta go, have a food coma on the couch. So I find just putting them in an easy place, right with your food, is suggested. And then also, or something that works for me. Also, I sometimes take like an empty bottle, or I have a couple of bottles, so I'll make sure that they're strategically located, like in the living room where I tend to snack with meal spacing, on the kitchen table, wherever I tend to eat, I'll have the bottle right there. So just a thought.
Yeah, I think out of sight, out of mind is a big deal when you're trying to build a new habit. One of the most successful ways I found to help coach people to build a new habit around health is to, and don't skewer me because I'm sure there's some sort of toxins related to this, but I don't think it matters, is write on your hand the number of days you're in compliance with your new habit. So write a 1 with a pen and then a 2. So each time you do it, or use a sticky note system on your fridge, and you get to, like, almost like a kindergartner, like you get a X or you get a smiley face. But the on the hand thing is just an all day reminder that like something's different today. And so I find that to be the most effective.
Oh, I love that. I used to have this one calendar, and it was totally devoted to my habit pattern. And I was doing this long run of exercise at the time. And my big reward was just like marking off. And there was nothing else on that calendar, just like, I did it today. And it felt so damn good. And then you see the months. Also, I'm obsessed with these Frixion erasable pens. So that might be something if you wanted to write on yourself. They're on Amazon. I have terrible handwriting because my brain goes so fast. So an erasable pen is an integral part of my existence. Hello. So anyway.
And the other thing I'll say is, I believe that when someone notices a difference from a product, that it like with the betaine HCl, you and I, our experience with that, we were like, that's cemented in our brains forever. And so I would say that if you're watching this right now and you have any enzymes in the house and you're like, I don't, like, dude, I tried, like, great talk. I'm going to try the other stuff. I'm going to try the Wim Hof, but your enzyme thing is just, it's just old. It's not cool. It's two 90s. Double or triple the dose. At some point with any brand, at some point you'll reach a point of where the activation and the amount of units of the quality of the brand will do something. And so I do believe that, even with most brands, if you try like 4 or 6 per meal, you should notice something, and hopefully a positive thing. Now, if it doesn't work, please try Holozymes. We'll give you your money back. If it doesn't work, that's how much I believe in this stuff. And that's like the culture I want to build, is like, these products are so good that you'll notice them. And if not, that's cool. We'll give you your money back. Go try something else.
Yeah. It's all about, choices and options and freedom and integrity. All right. You have one more thing on the list about how to be, I'm calling it SIBO proof, but how to reduce relapsing in SIBO. Prokinetics. Yeah. We need to talk about prokinetics, which is in your HCl Guard. So let's talk about that, and also movement on the ocean. Yeah.
We need lots of motion in the ocean. So there is a really cool study that I found just the other day that whole vibration plates, so those plates you see at the gym, or like the biohacker plates that Dave Asprey's on.
I have one. Look, you guys, I have one right under here. Don't judge me about if you see dirt on my floor, but look, I have one. It's right underneath.
Awesome.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so spending time on those does all kinds of really, really cool things for the body. We're talking lymphatic drainage, we're talking osteoporosis prevention, and sometimes even rebuilding of bone, like if it's strong enough. But there's a cool new study where mice and then humans actually had better microbiome diversity. And so, if you think about like what we're trying to, again, do with SIBO, we're trying to set up like, what are some daily rituals that like help every part of your health? They get you feeling better, thinking clearer, feeling sexier, like everything, and SIBO proof. Movement, and specifically things that are sort of like vibrationally oriented, whether you're rebounding. So if you have, that's like when you have a little trampoline, you bounce on the trampoline, a whole vibration plate. You can also do like jumping jacks or like air squats. Like there's those inversion tables, anything that like just really messes with the body's internal lymphatic flow, as well as the blood flow. I do believe, and there's some really just weird, odd studies out there showing that you're going to be improving your microbiome. And if you think about it, let's say your migrating motor complex is a little stuck. Let's say you do have adhesions. Let's say, let's say you're like me and you work a lot in front of the computer. Like you're just not moving the body cavity in such a way that you actually might dislodge some extra food stuck in there. And so I think, it's just a hypothesis. I don't have anything to prove this, but if you have a sluggish migrating motor complex, get on a vibration plate and force that thing to work.
That is fascinating. Okay, let me it's literally what's today? Okay, the Lymphatic Rescue Summit, which 83,000 people attended. Thank you if you were part of it, is wrapping up. So one of the things that I learned from doing it is you want to, this is the Kelly Kennedy method for lymphatic drainage, is you're here across, and then you cross your hands. You want to pat or, stimulate these lymph nodes for cleansing, first at the top, then the armpit area, right? Ooh, hello, muscles. Then right here, like at the sternum, and then at the groin, and then behind the knees. And sometimes I do my feet too. I was way oversimplifying it, but it is simple. And the reason is because if you think of a toll booth and things getting backed up at the toll booth, you don't want to start at the bottom. You want to start at the front at the toll booth. So that's what you want to do. So before you do any of this exercise, before you get on that rebounder, before you get on the, I call it the lymphatic plate, the vibration plate, make sure you open up those lymph passageways and that you're drinking some water, etc. And Steve, it's been so rewarding to see how so many people have been responding to the Lymphatic Rescue Summit. And I just say that because, I did it on a mission because my mother passed away from lymphoma in the 90s and no one knew anything about it. And it was just primitive and radical in the way she was treated. And I don't want anyone to go through that. And there were so many things we can do ourselves. And by the way, if when you're doing this, you feel like a change of the taste of your mouth, you need to do this more often. And I'm not going to show you my lovely armpit, but also in the free talk that Kelly gave, she talks about puffs versus pits. And if you have a concave, meaning going out this way, armpit versus a convex, meaning this way, pit, then you really need to do this because you want a pit, not a puff. There you go. So yeah, it's just good to be able to do an instant check. And if you keep working on it, you can definitely transform that. So that's really interesting. The whole osteoporosis thing is so interesting about the rebounder and the vibration plate. It makes sense though, right? It makes sense.
Yeah, our bones need one of the biggest issues is once you're over 50, you start to lose bone mass, and then especially in menopause, you lose your estrogen. Estrogen is positively correlated with bone mass. So once your ovaries are done for the lifetime, bone mass tends to go really fast, and then we have this osteoporosis condition. Unfortunately, gravity is not enough stress on the bone to stimulate it without the presence of estrogen, as well as other hormones that are declining, like testosterone when we age. And so we need to up gravity. And so you can do that through strength training, but it has to be you have to move weight, not 10 pounds. You got to work with a trainer and work up. You can do it with rubber bands, safer ways than just some grunts like me in the gym trying to do it. Or they have these really cool vibration plate studies. So between banded workouts and vibration plates, that's what I'm trying to get my mother, who's 60, almost 64 now. And I'm trying to get her into that pattern. I don't think she's bought into the habit quite yet. But if I could just joystick her around, that's what I'd have her do. Is a little 10-minute banded workout every day, and then 10 minutes on the vibration plate. And then there's a lot of studies that suggest a certain amount of activity every day is positively correlated with better microbiome diversity and less IBS. And is that because you're reducing your anxiety? Is that because it does something when you juggle or when you jiggle your intestines around? I don't think anybody knows the answer, but there has been a big movement in the chronic health world to not exercise, steady state cardio, or I don't feel fatigue, and I get it. I've had some pretty hard times in my recovery, but some of the people who need to move the most are most tired. And so if I can get that message out there, just to, whether it's 10,000 steps, if you can't do 10,000 steps, 5,000 steps, anything like that, I really do believe that getting some more activity into the body system and just shaking it up literally is really good for SIBO proofing.
That's really interesting. It makes sense. Guys, we can get stagnant. And it doesn't mean that you have to go kill yourself as you're exercising and create an inflammation response. So that's, when I used to get Rolfed, I was no pain, no gain. I was, really feeling good for 24 hours after a Rolfing. And I'm just using that as an example. I know they've evolved as well. But then everything tightened up to the point of where it was almost like it never happened, and maybe even a little bit worse, because my personal inflammation response then caused all my fascia to contract. So just a thought, you don't have to beat yourself up. A little goes a long way, especially if you have been sedentary and you're exhausted. I get it. Somebody's asking about those thumpers, those massage thumpers. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Would that be kind of like a vibration plate? Yeah, theoretically, I would say that it would be. I think that the vibration plate really does go through your whole body. But if you have one of those thumpers at home with the vibration and you already own it and you don't have to spend any more money and you want to try it, I definitely would suggest that for sure.
Yeah, it's localized versus systemic. So
Right.
if you do it localized everywhere once a day for, it takes you 10 minutes, then awesome. You're not going to get the osteoporosis benefits, but you will get the lymphatic and potential microbiome, maybe potential microbiome.
Right. How does the enzyme work if you take it in between meals? So Steve did address that, but if you could just touch on that again.
Yeah, so enzymes taken in between meals or without food are called systemic enzymes. And so there are specialty systemic enzymes, but in general, you don't always need to invest extra money. Holozyme can be taken with or without food. The studies show that it works systemically. And so when you do that, I find enzymes to be, as far as I'm considered, an anti-aging tool because they help clean up the blood. So in our blood, like if your kidneys and your liver gets overflown or overflowed, your body has to like basically group the toxins and try to make them inert, but then they're floating around in our tissues and in our blood. And so enzymes can help clean those up. Enzymes can help blood flow in general. So if you're someone who's struggling to, have blood flow for any number of reasons, like you're sitting too much or you're too fatigued, things like that, can be very helpful. Yeah, they're used in like exercise and like recovery from exercise. So lots of history of enzyme and blood flow usage and detoxification improvement.
Cool. All right. We need to wrap it up. The vibration plate, I just got mine. Someone's asking a specific. Mine's called Life Pro. It's fine. I got it on a Black Friday sale on Amazon. I would look there, and I would look at, Dick's Sporting Goods, depending on where you live. A lot of times they have coupons. So I think they're pretty much all the same. One thing I would say is pay attention to the size of it. Mine's like probably too big. I'd probably prefer a smaller one. And some of them have little attachments where you can hold on. And that's also true for the rebounders. Some of them are bigger than others. Some of them have the handles. And keep in mind with the rebounder, because I used to sell them on HSN all the time, you can literally have your feet on the floor or on the edge of the rebounder if your knees are okay with that, and sit on it and bounce. You don't have to stand up. You will still get that cleansing from even just like bouncy with your butt on the rebounder. Steve, can you, so guys, Steve has given the SIBO SOS community a special price on Holozymes and on the HCl Guard. Clarissa has put them in the chat. Then you can also go to SIBOSOS.com, look for the shop, and the coupons are there. I'm saying coupons. When you check out, the $15 off your cart is applied automatically in the checkout process, right, Steve?
Yes, correct. That way, yeah.
You don't have to remember anything or anything like that, but you do have to use those links, which is what Clarissa's put in the chat here or on the website, SIBOSOS.com in the shop. Woo! Okay, last and not least, do get the book Healing SIBO. It's so many things that I've learned in the past 5 years. It has the algorithm that Dr. Pimentel and Dr. Stephen Sandberg-Lewis and Dr. Allison Seebecker put together. Dr. Pimentel created it, Dr. Seebecker and Dr. Stephen Sandberg-Lewis added to it. And it shows you what you need to do. You can come into it from any place, depending on where you are in your SIBO journey. Over 40 recipes. It's like the best $20 that you're going to spend on your SIBO journey. If you do like it, please leave a nice review, because I'm trying to get more velocity around that. I have about 61 reviews, and people like it. I'm so excited, and they're getting help, most importantly. So Steve, thank you so much for your wisdom and your insight. And we didn't really talk about prokinetics, but so I'm just realizing that. So let's touch on that before we wrap totally.
Sure. So do you want to set it? So yeah.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah. Prokinetic is essentially a way to strengthen and / force peristalsis and migrating motor complex. And so they work in different ways, whether they quote unquote try to strengthen the waves or make them happen or make them happen more often. So there's all different kinds. I think LDN is one of the coolest and best ones out there. I'm a huge fan of LDN for a number of reasons. So that's a prescription. You'll need to get that from a doctor. However, there are herbal options out there. So ginger is like the longest running Ayurvedic / now Western medicine has shown that in a study looking at the bottom of the stomach, if you feed it ginger, it will actually the fundus of the stomach will actually start to cause waves. And so so prokinetics are basically what am I missing here? They're just helping us start the waves and strengthen the waves.
Right, and their prescriptions like prucalopride, Motegrity, which is the name of it in the United States now. And the thing about ginger I just want to mention is you can cause ginger burn if your lower esophageal sphincter is not toned, which is why doing the HCl is also a really good idea, because that can help to tone that sphincter. So if you've ever had that feeling of acid reflux coming up, it could be because that sphincter is not toned, and HCl helps to tone it. So if you do ginger and you have a flappy lower esophageal sphincter, you might get ginger burn. So just go slow. Although it's so cool because you don't need a script for it. If it does work for you, it's, easily available. I've heard people in the Facebook group say they drink ginger tea throughout the day by just, peeling and chopping up the root and putting it in their hot water throughout the day. I don't think that's probably strong enough for most people as a prokinetic, but I certainly think that would be a lovely addition. So I just wanted to get that out in case some of you are brand new and you're like, I don't know what a prokinetic is, or what are you talking about? So those are some things to consider. Okay.
Yeah, and if you have any LES tone or any other tone issues, again, most likely pointing back to autonomic nervous system dysregulation or a lack of parasympathetic strength, or tone is what they call it. And do your breathing exercises and make some noises like an animal, and do your Wim Hof, or do a lot of singing, and those things usually get better.
Awesome. Steve, thank you so much. We will see you next time. We really appreciate you so much. And I look forward to hearing everybody's experiences and how they're going for you. And you can actually go to the Facebook group, SIBO SOS, and just type in Holozymes or type in HCl Guard, and there are some posts about it. But also his return policy is super generous. So most importantly, try it for yourself. Thank you.
Thanks, Siobhan.
Okay, love ya. Take care. Thanks. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I hope we covered it for you. And it looks like we did. And thanks for your patience at the beginning of this recording when I was having crazy tech issues. You are welcome. You are welcome. You are welcome. So we're going to close this out. And of course, the links are in the chat. So Clarissa, bless you. If you could put the link in, the appropriate places, go to the Facebook page and the Facebook group, SIBO SOS, and on the YouTube link, SIBO_SOS, I think is our channel there, or just type in SIBO SOS, it'll come up. And then also we send out an email with a replay. It's already organized that we are going to take this video, put it in the replay, and send it out, I think tomorrow. And there'll be links there for you as well. So be sure to open your email from SIBO SOS. Okay, peace, everybody. Thank you.
Send lots of love.
Love, love. Bye, Steve.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Yay. All right. Okay. Bye. Take care. Thinking of you. Love you.